I don't get it, man. Like, Hasan is a person of incredible wealth and means and resources. He's got the money to buy a fucking 3D printer if he wanted to go full Luigi Mangione. Like, there's nothing stopping him from being this radical person that he pretends like he is. But instead, they just prod their own audiences. It's such a fraud.
It is perfectly legal, perfectly valid, and perfectly moral. Okay? 100%. This is not like a this is not a gray area. This is black and white. Okay? It doesn't get more black and white than this. Israel's in the wrong. Israel is actually engaging in an apartheid, which is a crime in and of itself. Israel's doing a genocide in Gaza and an apartheid in the West Bank. 2 crimes in and of itself. And every type of armed resistance against both the settlers and also the Israeli occupying force in the West Bank. Doesn't matter if it's your favorite podcasters like Wife that participate in the Israelis. Doesn't matter if they matter.
So there's like a couple different possibilities here. If he said that participate in these raids versus participated in these raids, that's certainly a different context. It's not really clear to me what he says. We'll put it to a vote. I'm going to get into why it's still really f***ing bad. No matter, like, in either of those two contexts, it's still really bad. The reason why it's bad no matter what is Ethan has had CPS called on his home. He's had skulls sent to his home. And Hasan knows full well that there are people both in his audience. And I also want to look at his chat when we pull up the full clip here, and we can take a look at his chat and see what they're saying. He knows that the temperature is super dialed up right now. And so for him to say it, even if it was even if he was saying, like, if she participated or if she wasn't talking about, maybe he was just making a tongue-in-cheek joke to justify violence against people that are currently participating in these kinds of things. It's still totally unacceptable rhetoric because he knows that the temperature has been way dialed up. Like, this is him just pouring kerosene on an already insanely toxic situation. Wildly irresponsible. Like, wildly irresponsible. Completely unacceptable too. Like, you used to be friends with this person, you know? You've been over to their home, like you've hung out with them and their children, like you know Hila, like you know her as a person. I'm sure he knows that Hila is probably a very, like, nice person. I'm sure he knows that. If she was an asshole behind the scenes, if she was a really unpleasant or rude person, he would have already fucking said it. He would have said that by now. He would have said, you know what? Not a part of the podcast anymore. So now I can just tell you she was a bitch, you know, like he would have said something like that. I just think the rhetoric that is dialed up in that space, in the particular space that he occupies right now, is completely unacceptable. And at some point, someone is going to get hurt. I just want to say right now, for the record, guys, I see a lot of people making jokes and stuff. We're not going to do that in my chats, okay? We're not going to do that in my chats. I don't want to see people cracking jokes about, like, retaliatory strikes or anything like that. Let's not get into any kind of, like, violent rhetoric. Like the Tim Pool incident, he wasn't really even held accountable, was he? Like these mass shooters that listen to right-wing rhetoric? I mean, no. He kept that money. That's crazy to me. The Tim Pool situation is crazy to me. It gets exposed that, you know, I'm not going to say he wittingly knew what he was a part of, but he was unwittingly paid by Russia to do propaganda, and then he kept the money? Like, how did he get away with that? That's fucking insane. Dan Saltman, he won't stop. He's getting more and more extreme every day. Why wouldn't he? He's getting rewarded for it. We talk about this a lot, but there's this cycle of radicalization that's going on with that space. That's a symbiotic relationship. So Hasan hops on the scene 2019, 2020, and he's offering left-wing politics, but with a sort of edgy twist. And he's kind of starting to make, like, jokes. And all of a sudden people start becoming opposed to more kind of radical politics. And then his audience starts to become radicalized through that process. but then they're conditioned to expect radical rhetoric. And so the creator then, there's like a commensurate radicalization process going on where they're both radicalizing each other. Like the audience is radicalizing the creator because the creator wants to serve the audience's needs. And then the creator is radicalizing the audience by serving them those needs, which further radicalizes the audience into pressure, you know, like expecting that kind of rhetoric from the, and then it just keeps going down, 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 down. And by the end of it, we reach this insane moment where this kind of rhetoric is acceptable in these spaces. It's fucking crazy. By the way, Hasan isn't referring to her as a target, but using her service as a reference to valid today in 2025. He knows what he's doing. He knows that things have escalated to the point where government has shown up at Ethan's house and there's fucking skulls being sent to his house. He knows that Ethan has he knows that BE has had his sights set on Hasan on Ethan for a really long time now. He knows that BE has completely deranged audience members. It's completely unacceptable for him to do that. And it seems like he's using Hila as a sort of proxy to get at Ethan, which is like another layer of kind of, frankly, misogyny, if you ask me. Let's actually watch the clip.
The Israeli parliament just approved a motion to annex the West Bank. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll happen, but it shows the thinking.
Like any kind of violence that Israeli settlers or the Israeli military experiences in the West Bank is literally legal, okay? It is legal resistance against an occupying military force. I cannot repeat this enough. Just like any kind of violence that the Israeli occupying force experiences in the Gaza Strip is actually, once again, totally legal and totally moral resistance by the Palestinians. Doesn't matter if they're the Al-Aqsa Brigade, doesn't matter if they're a part of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, doesn't matter if they're DFLP, PFLP, or even former Fatah militants, okay? It is perfectly legal, perfectly valid, and perfectly moral, okay? 100%. This is not like this is not a gray area. This is black and white, okay? It doesn't get more black and white than this. Israel's in the wrong. Israel is actually engaging in an apartheid, which is a crime in and of itself. Israel's doing a genocide in Gaza and an apartheid in the West Bank, 2 crimes in and of itself. And every type of armed resistance against both the settlers and also the Israeli occupying force in the West Bank. Doesn't matter if it's your favorite podcasters like Wife that participate in these raids. The violence that the Palestinians engage in an act of resistance against this illegal occupying force is literally legal, definitionally legal. Okay? It's just the truth.
I would agree that there's a certain amount of like violent resistance that would be justified in West Bank. The problem is when you say that this applies to settlers as well, like I feel like we have to compartmentalize different kinds of settlers. Like for the settlers that are there that are like waving guns around, there was a settler that just murdered a Palestinian in the West Bank the other day. Like that's fair game, obviously, in terms of violent resistance. But like a family, the problem when you make it so broad, when you say like all settlers, there would like violence would be justified against all settlers. Well, there's like people's wives there and their children there. So like, what does that mean? And it gets particularly dark when you consider the fact that at one point Hasan even said there were settler babies. Like, I don't know what that means. Like a settler baby. Like, I don't know what that means. And then like we haven't even gotten into the Hila thing yet, but like a baby is a baby. You know what I mean? Like a baby is a baby. A baby is not like a settler or even like they're not like, you know, a Republican or a Democrat. They're not like a baby is not like Hamas. A baby is not IDF. It's a baby. They're like a small sack of like flesh that can't really think in an abstract way yet, and completely rely on you to like eat food and provide them with like safety and shelter. The fucking baby. Where's the clip of? Oh boy, I almost just. Where's the clip of him saying that there are settler babies? Hold on.
Palestinians have the legal ground to violently seize back their own homes from these settlers. This is a reality, and that is precisely the reason why they have to exist under endless occupation in the West Bank.
And that's why I say, if it was settlers, that would be a lot more understandable. Yeah. But let's not obfuscate, okay? I understand what you're saying. But this dude just called babies militants.
No, I understand. And there are baby settlers as well. But there are...
Oh my God, man. I laugh, but it's just like, I don't know what else to do besides laugh. Because, I mean, coding Jesus with $5, not a Democrat, but you're the most sane liberal I've seen online. Hearing you on issues is so refreshing compared to the crazies and socialists. I'll turn you into a Democrat. Give me time. Stick around the stream. Stick around, okay? I can pry my little liberal Democrat tentacles into your mind, like season 2 of the OA. There are settler babies. Like, I don't even know what to do with that. Like, what a
As well. They're in the West Bank.
And that's why I say, if it was settlers, that would be a lot more understandable. Yeah. But let's not obfuscate, okay? I understand what you're saying. This dude just called babies militants.
No, I understand. And there are baby settlers as well. But there are baby settlers as well. There are babies in the settlements.
But the babies that killed were not.
There are babies in the settlements. That doesn't make them baby settlers. A settler is usually defined as someone who moves to a new area, often as a part of a colonizing population. Babies obviously don't choose to move, so they aren't active agents. But if a family moves into a settlement or a colonized area, the baby becomes a part of the settler population by presence, even if they aren't making the decision themselves. I understand what you're saying. I think people intuitively understand what you're saying. But can you understand why it's especially problematic to couple the language of settlers are fair games, not just IDF, but settlers themselves are fair game for violent resistance, and then also call like a baby a settler? Like, the marriage of these two things is obviously problematic. I mean, I don't even know if I accept your logic here. Hold on. Settler definition. A person who moves with a group of others to live in a new country or area, especially one inhabited by people of a different ethnic group or religious group. Here's the problem. Here's where I think the technicality is for why this doesn't work. A person who moves with a group of others to live in a new country or area. A baby is moved. You know what I mean? They're not, like, when you say a person who moves with a group of others, the implication there is that it's like someone who made a choice. Like, a baby is not choosing to move anywhere. It's just moved there. I understand that, like, definitionally you might be right, but I mean, I think it's also especially irresponsible, like, after October 7th, where we saw countless horrifying examples. I don't know how much like video footage you guys saw of October 7th. I don't know about you guys, but like, so I remember when I was like 20 getting curious about like beheading videos and then watching them online. And I remember one was so horrific that I'm not going to get into the details, but it fucked me up for like 2 weeks. And after that, I was like, I am never watching that again. I'm never watching that kind of stuff again. But when October 7th happened, it was just impossible to escape it for like a week. There were just videos that were just blasted on the timeline for like a week. And, you know, they filmed themselves doing it. They live streamed themselves doing it. And there were videos of families on the kibbutzim, young kids, you know, teen kids, young kids, babies, you know, murdered with like brutal violence. So I think it's irresponsible language on a number of different levels, which doesn't even get into the Hila angle of this. It does seem like he's using Hila he's like cynically attacking her to get to Ethan. That's what this feels like. That's what this feels like. I don't think Hasan literally thinks that Hila deserved to die. I would bet my life that he doesn't actually think that she deserved to die back then. Can we acknowledge he's talking Hila as a target when she was in IDF? I don't think I should have to explain why saying something like that about somebody that, especially about someone that you used to be friends with, is completely unacceptable rhetoric. When Ethan and Hila and their family have been targeted by these fucking lunatics already online. Like, do you guys actually think that he thinks that Hila deserved to die? Or do you think he's using Hila to try to get to Ethan? I think it's obvious what's going on there. I don't get it, man. Like, Hasan is a person of incredible wealth and means and resources. He's got the money to buy a fucking 3D printer if he wanted to go full Luigi Mangione. He could do that. Like, there's nothing stopping him from being this radical person that he pretends like he is. He could do the Basil tweet. He could do that. He could do the Basil tweet if he actually wanted to. But instead, they just prod their own audiences. They whip their own audiences into this like fever dream. Especially Noah. Like, Noah's an even worse example of this. What a fucking coward that guy is. What a ridiculous, unserious person that is. I don't get how these people have credibility with their audiences. Like, if you're so radical, I don't understand why you're not putting your own safety and security on the line. Instead, you're prodding your audience to do it. It's such a fraud. That was a moment that I don't think got enough coverage in the debate between Ethan and Hasan. Hold on. Let me see if I can. Where's that full debate? Hold on. Let me do a Control F transcript. There was one part of that debate that I thought was like, it just came and went and nobody talked about it. And it was the most silly argument that Hasan made the entire debate.
Hasan, you say that Hila could have gone to jail and done a conscientious objection instead of joining the army. Why do you pay taxes? Why do you pay taxes to the United States government?
This is your big argument, Ethan?
Answer the question.
That I pay taxes and I'm morally culpable. I know. That's why I try to fight against this goddamn government doing this shit every day.
Hold on. Why don't you stand up for your principles and go to jail for it?
Because it would not actually stop, okay? It would not actually stop. The reason why I'm saying...
What a fucking stupid argument. What a nonsensical, stupid fucking argument. In the context of condemning Hila for forced conscription. He tries to weasel out of it by saying if I didn't pay my taxes, the Israeli occupation would continue. Does he not understand the same thing applies to Hila? It's the same thing applies. If she would have done a conscientious objector status and not served and went to prison or whatever, that wouldn't have stopped the occupation. How does this argument make it like, this is one part of the argument that, I mean, it was a really long debate that I didn't really see a lot of people talking about it after the fact, but it's like it is obvious contradiction to call 18-year-old Hila a coward for not going to prison. Imagine you're an 18-year-old Israeli in 2005. You were born and raised in Israel. Most of your information about the world, about Gaza and the West Bank, about Israel, about the dynamic in the Middle East, that's all going to come from within Israel. How can we, in the year of our Lord 2025, or how can anyone go back to 2005 and then judge her for signing up for mandatory conscription? Would any of you have made a different decision? How can anyone in his chat or Noah's chat or my chat or anyone's chat, how can any of us confidently say that we would have gone to prison rather than serve right after the second intifada? That's the other thing too. The second intifada was wildly violent. There were over 100 suicide bombings that took place, like right around the time that she signed up. As a kid, I'm sorry, you're 18 years old, you're a fucking kid. What can I tell you? When some people grow up faster than others, maybe you grow up faster in Israel, but 18 to me, you're still a fucking kid. How can any of these fucking judgmental freaks sit there with a straight face and be like, I would have done the right thing? How could you know that? If you were raised in Israel and all the information you got about Palestine versus Israel came from Israel right after the second intifada, where there's going to be anytime a country is attacked all the time, there's going to be a kind of like a jingoism, like a patriotism, like a sense of unity. You would have made it, you would have gone to prison. How could you possibly know that? The same thing, by the way, applies to young people who join the Houthis, young people who join Hezbollah, young people who join Hamas. I consider those young men to be victims. Literally. And that doesn't mean that I co-sign anything that they've done or that I would whitewash any of the barbaric violence of October 7th. But I think your smoke in that spot should be reserved for Hamas leadership who recruited these vulnerable men and then radicalized them with this extremist religious ideology. I apply that same standard to those young men that I would for like IDF. You have no idea. Like if you were raised in Gaza as a young man, there's a decent chance you would be recruited by Hamas and it wouldn't be your fault. And the same goes for the Houthis in Yemen and the and Hezbollah in Iran or Syria. No, Lebanon, Jesus Christ. You have no idea what you would have done in that spot. You have no fucking idea. And it's also just like the peak Western bourgeois nonsense. You know, especially if you're raised in a country like America, where there's basically no threat of any kind of like military strike against you. September 11th was a very rare occurrence, but most people in the United States live in relative security. You know, there's some dangerous areas of the United States, you know, there's some dangerous areas in cities, but most people, we're not worried about rocket fire coming into our neighborhood. We're not worried about people coming in with paragliders and doing crazy shit. Like, it's pretty safe here compared with the rest of the world. It's so fucking easy for a young lefty who was raised in America to judge 2005 Hila for something that they would have done just the same if they were in her position. It's responsibility for being an extremist versus accountability for your actions. We don't know of any bad actions that Hila did. That's the other thing too. It's like, do you guys remember when you were 18? What was I doing when I was 18? I was smoking weed every fucking day and just trying to get laid. That's pretty much it. I was in college, wasn't playing a lot of video games. I was just chasing tail, getting high, riding on my skateboard. I was a fucking kid. I was a kid. If you would have drafted me at the age of 18 to go fight in fucking Afghanistan or Iraq, and then I was assigned like a desk position and I'm fucking bored out of my mind, I probably would have done the same fucking thing. Like, hey, do you guys want to take me? Where are you going? Can I go? This desk job fucking sucks. I'm so bored here. And people are treating her like she was a fucking SS officer marching people into the ovens because she went on a ride along in Ramallah without a weapon. And they call her like an IDF terrorist for this. They legitimately compare that to like a young SS officer. They legitimately do that. I'm not making it up. I saw someone in my chat already do that like 5 minutes ago. You see it with these people all the time. They compare her to like literal like youth Nazis. We should not judge. I don't think we should judge like young people in that way. I mean, you still condemn the actions, right? Obviously, you still condemn the actions. So even though I would say that I reserve most of my judgment for like Hamas leadership instead of the ones who actually did the violence that day, you still condemn what they did. You don't say like, well, you know, they were just kids. You still condemn the action. I don't think that anyone is in a position to judge people that are raised in extremely violent and turbulent and unstable conditions. I don't think we should judge people for how they end up, you know, like that Timothée Chalamet situation. That kid, I don't blame him for being radicalized in his position. You don't condemn it. And you certainly don't invite him on a podcast and then like celebrate the Houthis. But I don't blame that kid. I mean, who among you can confidently say that you wouldn't similarly like align with Houthis if you were raised in Yemen in the 21st century? Probably most people in here would have gone down the same fucking road. I don't understand why you can't extend that kind of empathy to someone like Hila. And we're not talking about there's no evidence whatsoever that she ever fired a single gun, ever fired a single round during her time in IDF. Dwayne with $10. Did you see Noah bash the kid who made it known he would go to jail over serving? He did exactly what was asked, and it wasn't enough because that's not actually what Noah wants. He actually deleted that tweet, I think, this fucking idiot, because he realized that, oh shit, this makes me look like a complete hypocrite. Pretty sure he deleted that tweet. Let me see if I can find it. I don't see it anymore. I think he did delete it. He put out a tweet like last week or something like that, there were, I think, 12 kids, or I don't know, 6 to 12 kids in Israel who were refusing to go into service for IDF, and they're going to go to prison for that decision. And I don't know. I mean, that's, you can call it naivete, you can call it bravery, maybe it's a little bit of both, but I mean, I respect someone who stands on principle like that. Anybody willing to go to prison for, isn't it like 2-3 years? And then you're like a social pariah by the time you come out, and your job prospects are really difficult. I mean, that's a pretty huge sacrifice, right? I respect anyone who is who will stand on business like that. And Noah quote retweeted the story, and he made some snarky, sarcastic reply. He said something like, I don't know, he was basically belittling these people, suggesting that this wasn't enough. So I don't know, what exactly did he say? It's a few months in prison? Is that true? Hold on. Yeah, I think you, yeah, sorry. I think I misspoke there. 3 to 6 weeks. It's not just the prison though. I mean, you do become a pariah. People will look at you like a social outcast, and it does fuck with your job prospects. So it's not a small thing to refuse service. And he belittled it. He was basically making the point that there's not enough people that are doing this. I think is what he was saying. Or he was making the point that this is like the least that they could do. It's just the bare minimum that young people in Israel can do is refuse service and then go to prison and then come out and then just be treated like fucking social outcasts. He was belittling them for doing this. And yet he's also making the case that 2005 Hila should have refused IDF service. Do we understand the contradiction here? Like, he's saying she should have done that, and then he's also belittling these kids that actually did the thing that he's asking for. That's why he deleted the tweet, because it's just massively contradictory. He said he respects all dozen of them, downplaying how many people are doing it. He was so demeaning in his tweet. I assume that's why he deleted it. Anyways, this particular part was...
Why do Hila could have gone to jail and done a conscientious objection instead of joining the army? Why do you pay taxes? Why do you pay taxes to the United States government?
This is your big argument, Ethan?
Answer the question.
That I pay taxes and I'm morally culpable? I know. That's why I try to
why don't
fight
you go to
against
jail?
this goddamn government doing
why
this
don't you
shit
stand
every
up for
day.
your Why don't you stand up for your principles and go to jail for it?
Because it would not actually stop, okay? It would not actually stop.
I just wish that I could jump into a time machine to this exact moment and be in that studio and just run up to Ethan and be like, tell him the same applies to Hila. It wouldn't have stopped. If she would have gone to prison, it wouldn't have stopped. He's using logic for himself that he's not allowing for Hila. He's applying a totally different standard to Hila than he is himself.
The reason why I'm saying
What wouldn't stop?
I don't take issue with Hila's fucking actions then, as long as, just like you said, she was just 19 years old. I take issue with the fact that she still defends it on principle.
What did she
says
say?
The Israeli occupying force is not a terror organization. You have a disagreement with him.
Well, I think I can see it from her perspective too, which is like, the problem with you is that everything's black and white.
You can't see it from
I assume that when she served, she served with a lot of her peers who were very good and decent people, which is why she would be hesitant to call like Israel this terrorist force. Like, again, it's the same. We go back to what we were just talking about a moment ago with like Hamas and the Houthis. It's the same for IDF. You should reserve your smoke for the commanding officers in IDF. You should reserve your smoke for Netanyahu. And for any IDF soldier committing war crimes, obviously, but there's like a hierarchy of blame. Like, if you're going to get mad at Israel for the various military actions that they've done over the decades, you should reserve that smoke for the people that are actually in charge of the fucking military. Anyways, I wanted more context here.
your favorite podcasters like wife that participate in these raids, the violence.
Now watch his chat. Watch his chat. Let's see what his chat says.
That the Palestinians engage in an act of resistance against this illegal occupying force is literally legal, definitionally legal.
W, yes. Uh-oh, LOL, LMAO, terror wife.
It doesn't matter that they look to be.
It's funny to them. Like, it's funny. Like, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. I don't know what to tell you guys. This is just like fucking textbook stochastic terrorism. It's just, he knows what the fuck he's doing. I just think like we live in these increasingly hostile times, and the internet has turned these kinds of interactions into sort of media spectacle. So if this were just two guys, you know, if this was just Hasan and Ethan having disagreements, if they didn't have any kind of platform, if they worked regular 9-to-5 jobs, they'd probably have found a way to like squash this by now. And they could, you know, assuming that both people are emotionally mature and grown-ups, people have these kind of disagreements and then find their way through them with mutual respect and, you know, mutual understanding and this kind of. But then you add this other factor of like this rabid, psychotic audience that's just there in the background. It's just constant background noise. It just lights the whole thing on fire. And it creates, it elevates the conflict. Do you think he's partially trying to prove he's radical enough since he was called out by BE for platforming a Jewish man? Well, I think that video was before BE was like shitting on Hasan the other day, which is just so fucking funny. That was a cuck chair, by the way. When Noah had BE and Hasan talk to each other on that stream that they were doing for the fundraiser, that was just a full-on cuck chair. Hasan completely cucked himself in that conversation because I saw clips where BE is like criticizing him for not going far enough rhetorically or whatever. He just had to sit there and take it. And then not that long afterwards, a few weeks afterwards, BE's on Twitter calling Ethan a Zionist, which is basically like the fucking N-word in those circles, like with the hard R. I think Hasan is obviously compensating. Like, Hasan is not a radical. He is like a fucking fashion influencer. Hasan is a fashion and lifestyle influencer. That's basically what he amounts to in practice. Like, in action, he is a fashion and lifestyle influencer. And I think he feels self-conscious about this because he talks this big game about, you know, radical action and fucking violent resistance and blah, 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 blah. And I think it's obvious he's fucking compensating because he feels insecure about that. You know, you can't have that kind of incongruence without there being some kind of like psychological conflict. He talks all this shit, talks this big radical game, but he's not doing anything himself. He's not doing anything radical. Going to a fucking protest in Los Angeles, like right as it's starting to escalate, and then, you know, being in a crowd where tear gas was dispersed, that we're calling that radical. We live in times where people are, you know, political violence is becoming more normal. The situation with like the Minnesota lawmakers was horrifying. The situation with the young couple outside of that Jewish museum, that one was particularly horrific because the gunman like had to reload twice to fully kill the young woman there. It was pretty barbaric. The Luigi stuff was crazy. The guy who lit those 5 people on fire in, what was it, Colorado? And in that kind of a climate, to do this kind of rhetoric involving Hila is such a scumbag move. Like, it's beyond, I don't know what the word for it is. It's like, it's truly deplorable. It's disgusting.